We'll be looking at the 3 hidden profit leaks that cost landlords thousands of pounds, and we'll see the way to fix them within the next 7 days, even less than that, within the next half hour. And this has the potential to grow your rental income for your property by as much as 33%. Depending on how long you've left it before you've actually reviewed the rents, it could be more than 33%. But this is an example that I experienced over the last week. So my name is Uwa Ujam. I've been investing in property for more than 20 years. I've also been an IT expert and software developer for more than 20 years as well. So I do have skills in both sides of the industry. And right now we are pushing AI automation work and AI improvements into property businesses, especially the businesses of property investors. Now, this session is for you if you have between 2 and 20 properties. The upper limit is really arbitrary, but we feel like if you have more than 20 or 25 properties, then really you should have a different system helping you rather than some like spreadsheets or something that you carry in your head. So what would you learn today? We'll look at the 3 hidden profit leaks. So the way you're losing money in your portfolio every month. We'll show you how to automate the rent reviews using AI workflows and really dedicated AI engines. And then I'll show a live demo of a rent optimizer bot that you can use in your portfolio, and it's very easy. And then there's an offer at the end, which I believe you would enjoy to experience. So is this you? Do you have between 2 and 20 properties? Could be 25, could be 30, but between 2 and 20 properties. Do you want to grow your income without buying any more properties? Because we know it is challenging raising the deposit to buy properties, especially if you have other things that you do. If you're a full-time doctor or a full-time IT engineer, sometimes raising the deposits to buy and increase your portfolio might prove really difficult. But as we'd see today, if you take advantage of some of the latent gains that you have in your current portfolio, you might be able to raise those deposits that you need to grow your portfolio. And do you suspect that some rents in your portfolio are actually on the market? Now, there are some estate agents that are really good at pushing for increases every year. So it's gradual and it keeps pace with the open market rents. Others are just not dialed in, and it's because they don't have the systems to help them just review all of the portfolios or all of the properties within their organization to highlight the ones that have slipped beneath the open market rent. And on the other hand, you might not want to increase your rent, because there are some landlords that don't increase rents. In fact, I know more landlords that don't increase their rents yearly than I do those who increase every year. It is your choice, but oftentimes the costs of everything we do continues to grow, but our rents don't. And with the taxes growing and all of the challenges that landlords are due to face with new changes, this is a time to look at pushing those numbers and increasing them where you can. Obviously, it's your own judgment. If you increase the rent and your tenant moves out, are you happy to take the hit of a month or 4 to 6 weeks whilst you look for someone else to occupy the property? Depends on how much you are in growing your rent by. So if you're curious, this is the right place for you. Now, the 3 hidden profit leaks that I refer to in this webinar are the under-rented properties. So these are properties that have stayed at the same price, same value for years, right? Or sometimes they've increased but not increased in line with inflation. They've not increased in line with what the market would pay. Now, if that is you, then you are definitely in the right place, because I'll show you ways to determine if you have any properties that are under rented. Now, the second thing is, if you're trying to refinance your property, a few years ago there was a time when lenders would actually force you to push your rents to the market rent, open market rent, and not have your rental values under, because sometimes people forget to manage their properties and maintain the numbers. And then the final one is the silent expense creep. And that silent expense creep is where you've taken out insurance. That insurance sits there. The following year, you just renew. You keep renewing. And what those guys do is they send you renewals, and they're just tiny to begin with. Then then a little bit more, then a little bit more. Suddenly, your insurance is almost double, and it's just been 3 years or 4 years. So at times like that, you see that things are creeping. And ideally, you want to have a system that also monitors the things that you're changing within your property. So if you fix the boiler and you fixed the boiler 2 years ago, why is it time to fix it again, or renew the boiler? So these are things that you want to keep on top of. But the one we would focus on today is the under rented property, because that's where the biggest margin I've seen thus far would come from. So this leak number one is under rented properties. So most of us landlords, we only review our rents when the tenant is leaving, if that, or if the estate agent tells us that it's time to review the rent, or they just go ahead and do it. It's ideally, if you have an estate agent managing some of your properties, they should be pushing those rents up. If they're not, then you want to stay in charge of what is going on, and this tool that I'm going to show you today would help you stay in charge. So if your rents drift under the market, your rents may have drifted by £100, £10, £50, £200, £500. In the case of the example today, drifted by £300, over £300. And if you just prorate that across the year, £300 times 12, that's £3,600 for one property. You could do that for multiple properties. So that's something to bear in mind. If you've got 5 properties and all 5 of those are adrift of the real market rent by £500, that's a substantial amount, and it's easy to miss, but it's even easier for you to stay on top of things if you have automation in place. So here's a real example. So this real example was a boost by 33% in a property in Stratford. So that property in Stratford stayed under the market value for years, and the reason it stayed beneath the market value for years, or market rent, was because the tenants could not afford to increase how much they were paying for the rent. Now, they were good tenants, so the landlord retained them and just kept the rent at the sub-market level. But that happened for 3 years. Now, over those 3 years, the market rent had gone up by over £300. So now the landlord is thinking, well, it's time for me to actually get the market rent again. And the tenants have to do something, either increase how much they're paying, or they'll have to find somewhere else to move to. Now, on reviewing the rent, it then appeared that the latest market rent is £1,400. They're only paying £1,050. So straight away, there's a 33% increase. Now, his taxes have not gone down. His expenses have not gone down. Everything he's paying for has gone up significantly with inflation, yet his rent hasn't. So in real terms, he's losing money. So that's the reason to stay on top of what you are paying or what you're getting in through your rent. And the more you get, the more you get to keep, right? Even if you're taxed on your income if it's personally owned, or it's taxed on your profit if it's owned by a business. So if you have this in 2 or 3 properties, imagine getting an extra £1,100, £1,200 a month. So that's 33% straight there. You can do the calculation. Now, the leak number 2 is the refinancing blind spots. So many landlords forget when their mortgage is due to renew, when the fixed term on the product that they signed up to expires, because when that happens, the mortgage product suddenly goes up to the standard variable rate, and that standard variable rate can be substantially higher than you were paying previously. Now, this is a bit sneaky because a lot of people who own property don't actually rely on the income from the property. They still carry on working. So as a result, it doesn't really bother them if they're underpaying or undercharging. But what happens when you come to refinance is that sometimes you're not able to get the product you want, and that's because your refinance is based on the income you are getting in from your property. So when they do all of their calculations and do the stress test, you're not able to get that top rate of that top mortgage rate. So that's something to bear in mind. So it automatically values your property a bit less, and your equity is trapped. You can't access any finance if you need the finance within your property, and that's not really the time to start increasing your rent in order to get the amount, the loan to value to work better in your favor, because you need to show multiple months of your rent being at the higher rate for the lender to believe that that's the actual rate that you are getting. So you miss refinancing opportunities, the leverage you can utilize with that. And for those who are actively investing, or those who require the money that they can pull out from their properties to invest in another property, you then face delays. So that's something to keep track of. So if you have an automated system that tells you every month, look, this property is now below market value. In some cases, your property might be above the market rent, in which case it will tell you that it's overperforming. And if it's overperforming, that is also a risk, because then if a tenant leaves, then you may not be able to get the same amount from the next tenant that occupies your property. And then the final one is the expenses creeping. So I've spoken about the insurances, the mortgage fees, the management fees, any repairs. It's ideal for you to keep track of the repairs on your property, because sometimes you get charged multiple times for the same thing. And you can also keep track of expenses, even if the same thing is being charged multiple times. Keep track of why it keeps breaking. If it's something that breaks, or if it's a fee that you're paying or a fine that you're paying, you need to know what that is. So a little £20 here, a little 2k here, a little 1k here, over the year adds up. So spreadsheets very rarely would give you the information that you need in order to keep your property in peak condition or peak performance. So here's a comparison. You have a manual spreadsheet, or you have this automated tool, this rental appraisal bot that would look into your spreadsheet or your Google Sheet and track every single property and monitor that on your behalf, and you don't have to think about it. The manual way of doing it is you'd upload your properties onto some portal or a spreadsheet somewhere, and then you have to copy and paste via one of the portals that provides rental values, and then you have to work it out all yourself. That takes time. Nobody enjoys that. If you have machines that could do that for you and push any changes to your device, it could send you a Slack message if there's some gain to be had. It can also send you a text, or even phone you if you wanted to phone you to tell you that there is a property where you can make a gain. Now, if every year this happens, you're able to make £3,000 or £4,000 or £5,000, £5,000 extra, £3,000 extra, it's definitely worth it if you think about it. So that's the automated way of reviewing your properties. Now, introducing you to the Rent Optimizer bot. So that's what we've called it. It's an automated system that we've built in Auto-Re to help you, as the busy landlord, appraise your properties and stay on top of your property performance. Now, we've seen it already within the last week highlight an increase of 33% on the rent that the landlord was collecting. So that has already paid for itself in its time and how it's being used, and that's in just one property. We'll show you the property where this happened, the area where it happened, and then we'll show you some other contrived examples of where this tool does its work. And I'll show you the before, show you the after, show you what the reports look like, and how it highlights quite clearly where you should be doing some increases. So this helps you identify those opportunities. And also think about, if the rent has gone up and it's much higher, you may be able to sell the property if you want to sell it at a higher price, because you can sell it with a tenant in place, and the person buying it would do a normal buy-to-let mortgage or any other kind of finance, but the finance will be paid for using the rent that it's currently attracting. So it's an integration of very standard tools, Google Sheets, very standard Google Sheets. In this case, we've used Google Sheets. So Google Sheets represents the CRM, or where the tenant information is held, along with the property information, the current rent, the current values. I'll show you what that looks like. Then we use a tool called A-Net-N. A-Net-N is something that does the automation and checks every single property that you have in the sheet, and it connects to different market sources to get rental values, does its valuation based on the kind of property it is, and then based on all of that information, it talks to AI and generates you a justification for any report or any result that it comes up with. So it works monthly. We can schedule it as often as we want. If you want to schedule weekly, daily, monthly, but we would suggest monthly. So let's have a quick look at what this tool looks like, and then we'll come back and continue. So this is what NA10 looks like. All these boxes are doing different things. So here Google Sheets pulls the Google Sheets and then goes through here, talks to different end services or sources of data to produce something useful. Now, what would it look like? So if we go into our Google Sheet here, imagine this first sheet is one that contains your current properties, all the properties you've got on your books. So we've got the door number here, we've got the property address, we've got the town. The postcode is especially key because the values are based on the area where the property is located. In this one, we've got the current market rent. So based on the current market rent, this here is the market rent per week, and that's what it uses to compare against the current market rent per month. We can change that if that's something that you want for your own system. And then we've got other bits of information that help us in terms of estimating the exact rent you should expect to get based on the data that's available in that area. So it's not an unfair rent. This is the rent that is currently being charged in that space. So if you do quick maths, you can see that this rent of 372 times it by 4.3, you'd get a much higher figure than 1,050 a month. And this is a one-bed flat in the Stratford area in London. So on here as well, we've got other bits of information that helps us get the actual value that of rent that you should expect to get. And the other bits of information, the number of bedrooms, the living rooms, and the property size, what kind of property it is. Is it a flat? Is it a house? Is it a terrace house? Is it semi-detached? When it was built, how many bathrooms, the type of finish, if it's got a garden, and any off-street parking. So we've got that for different properties here. And what then happens is the rental optimizer bot then runs for each one of those properties, and then it highlights, as you can see very clearly and visually, it tells you what is the status of the first one. So that first one is the property that led to a 33% growth. In here it's saying it's underperforming. So that's what you see straight away when you look at your portfolio. You can see each one, okay, which one's good, which one's not good, where should I take any action or not take action. And here I can see very clearly the first one's underperforming, the next one's optimal. In fact, this one's slightly above the actual market rate, but we've kept it, the recommendation is for you to hold and not do anything. This third one is underperforming significantly. This is an example. It's not an actual property, but it's underperforming significantly because the landlord is charging 1,950 per month, but the actual valuation is 1,047 per week. Okay, and this is the value that is come back with based on all of the information that we put in the previous sheet. Okay, and that means that leads to an uplift over the year of £31,000 if you were to adjust the current rent. So if per chance you find a property in SW6 5EG where the landlord is currently charging £1,950, and this relates to row 4, and row 4 is the Cold Hill Lane here, this one here. Okay, so it's a 3-bed, two living room property. So if you find that, guess what? You might be in luck, right? And some people use this as a strategy as well to decide what part of the country or part of London they would be investing in, because you can see where the market rent should be and what some properties are charging. So there's room there for arbitrage. And then here you've got one that's outperforming. This one's deliberately pushed to make it look like it's outperforming. So if it's outperforming, you're told to take no action. And this one, you're told to increase, and this other one, you're just told to hold, and that's fine. So you get that for every single property. And there are other reports that we can generate from this, but just really quickly, that's what you get. And this is the bot that we can schedule to run every month. Depending on what your preference is. So every one of these buttons takes Every one of these buttons does one thing or another. It either connects to the sheet, or it just connects to the endpoint where we get the rental data, and it just pushes that through on your behalf. So that's the demo right there. If I just kick this off, we're not going to wait till it completes, but you'd be able to see it start running. You can see there it's saying that it's done 7 items. So let me move this out of the way so that I can see the execute now. So you click execute now, and then it goes off, and then it pulls the different sheets, and then it goes around and loops over them and just goes around and does its calculation. So that's it, just spinning and doing its thing. Okay, so that's the demo. If you do have any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. So with this in place, I hope you can see how easily you can set this up for yourself, or you can reach out to us and we can help you set this up on your behalf. Now, imagine you've got 3 properties, 4 properties. This is for people who have multiple properties, obviously. You can reach out to us, or you can set this up so that you can start making those additions to your rent. So imagine making an extra £10,000 this year without having to buy a new property or travel up north to go and look for somebody, some property somewhere where you know nothing about the area. But this one is the properties you currently have, you're managing them in peak performance and getting the most out of each one of those. So stop guessing, start optimizing. The information you're getting is based on real world data. So get clarity within your portfolio and start saving yourself time from having to do this manually, and just know behind the scenes that you have a system that has got your back. Now, who would this help? This will help all those who manage the properties themselves. I know a lot of people have a lot of people would have a combination of self-managed and estate agency managed. The ones you're managing yourself, how are you keeping on top of the market rent? The ones managed by your estate agents, I hope they do tell you when it's time to increase the rent or change its value. Now, each property has its own specific set of circumstances, but for all intents and purposes, this is something that you can do. Some tenants expect to pay some increases every year, some don't, but everything is up for discussion and negotiation. But if you're in a position where you can increase the rent immediately, you should know where the opportunity lies. Okay, for those building their portfolios, you do need to keep on top of those rents, because you need to build those portfolios and increase your rent. Increasing your rent means you can extract more from the property to finance and then do the next deal. And then for estate agents, you might want to offer this as a value add to some of your clients or some of your landlords. You just say, well, every month I'll run this on your behalf and send you, so that you know what's happening with your properties and your portfolio, and then you can show that you are staying on top of everything and you're providing them the optimal service. So in terms of today, we are offering a free portfolio profit leak check. So if you want an audit of your portfolios and you have seen what we've shown and you like what you've seen, then do reach out. It's free just for today. After today, it just goes back to the normal market rate of $499. So all you have to do is reach out, we have a discussion, then you send your property sheet and we can run it through the optimizer. Or even better, if you are technical and you're that way inclined, I can share the blueprint with you and the configuration so that you can load it into your own system within NA10, and it should run through the exact same thing with your own personal setup. So to do your market rent analysis, it will do a valuation based on actual data to tell you what the correct rent you should be charging ought to be for your own property. So bear in mind that when it's doing that valuation, it's looking at the values, it's looking at the property size, it's checking whether you have a garden or no garden, how many parking spaces or no parking spaces. So all those things do make a difference, and pretending they don't is not right. So the valuation takes all of those things into consideration, even when the property was built, is a part of the what it considers. So under rented units, I'll give you those lists, and then where there are potential gains. So all of that information will be at your fingertips anytime, every month. So if you do have any questions, let me just pause briefly to see if there are any questions on LinkedIn. Okay, I don't see any questions. Let's see on Zoom. There are no questions at the moment. Fine. Okay, so what would it mean to you if you are able to add £5,000, £10,000, £7,000 to your rental roll this year, right? If you know how to do the figures and you work backwards, you'd see what £7,000 means in capital terms. So it could be as much as £70,000 or £84,000 in terms of when you capitalize £7,000 over the lifetime of a property. So it is important to keep those numbers in mind and keep abreast of what's happening with your property. So that brings us to the end of today's session. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it. Do reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm Ua, and I'm always available to assist you with your automation needs or your property questions. Until next time, keep investing.